And welcome, Tyler.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? It's Friday. Hey, look, it's Simon. I see
It's
Simon.
Saturday. You're so in the
Saturday.
past, as always.
Well, you're always in the past. You're always in the past. So, Simon, we're going to talk a little bit about what cameras. We've talked about mounts. We've talked about either camera-based. I'm going to call them camera-based, like little Skywatchers, Ioptrons. We've talked a little bit about the smaller capacity mounts, like the IXOs behind me, and it looks like the AM5 behind you. So I think we can talk about. Yeah, I know the AM5. I think we could talk a little bit about cameras, and I kind of want today to be a question day for the audiences, because you're a camera guru. You know the ends. You know pixel scales. You pixel peep. I would assume you can just rattle off a whole bunch of numbers, and I can just go, huh? What? I don't know what you just said, because that's what you were doing to me last night while trying to set up other stuff. But welcome, guys, to another wonderful edition of Focus on Astrophotography. We have Simon Lewis, who is a representative of ZWO, and we're going to talk about cameras, and we're going to answer questions that you have. If you have any problems, me and Simon are going to help you troubleshoot it, get it fixed, get you back out there in imaging, and not pull your hair out, because me and Simon are losing it rapidly. Simon,
How could you say such a thing?
what have you been doing the past couple of months past 2-3 weeks since you've been on last?
Traveling with work for one, which kind of cramps your style. But we've been busy. We got some nice nights here at the observatory at West Melton. So Canterbury Astronomical Society have been running public open nights. That's where I was last night till late, and then we did a nice school event. Really, actually. We went to a local school. They wanted to bring a couple hundred kids to the observatory at West Melton, and we were kind of like, "Oh, this is not really going to work." So, how about we come to you? So we took 7 telescopes down to the local school and set them up on the playing field, and let 250 teachers, kids, and parents have a look through telescopes and look at the night sky, which was fun. And took the AM5 down, let the kids play with the tablet and do some astrophotography. And they really love that. That format for them is just so easy. It's so natural. Yeah. So we had a great time. Really good. So that's pretty much what I've been up to, and helping you, of course, as always.
Oh, well. Yeah, I was trying to trouble. I picked up a FRA 600, and I'm gracious that ZWO let me try out and borrow a 6200 that's sitting over here. Just wanting to see if the actual telescope is full frame capable, like it says it is on paper. Now, people that have done the hobby enough, they will swear up and down, always get a Takahashi if you're wanting to go with full frame, because it's, an 80 millimeter imaging circle, I believe.
Yeah, it's about that 80, 88. It's fairly big.
But it's like basically $7,000 at this point. But it's a 2-year wait now. But with the FRA 600, can't remember. I think is it a 60 millimeter imaging circle in the 600?
Yeah, 60.
It's 60. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm paying a third of the price, a little less than a third of the price. I have a full frame camera. Let's see if I can get this full frame to work on this as advertised. And that's where me and Simon are. But it's always been a question for some people is, I want to either stay in the APS-C size realm, or I want to get into the full frame aspect. With full frame, you have to think about filters. 2-inch filters will work if you don't mind vignetting, which flats will take care of, darks will take care of it, all of it will take care of that. But the main thing you got to mainly work at or fix or work on is the back focus, because sometimes stars in the corners, depending on if you're using a reducer or not, it can be a little wonky. They can either have crosses in them, they could have a collimation issue, or they can be just straight cut off, which sometimes happens. And that's where knowing what to look for, and this is all at the edge of the field of view, by the way, not in the central. Usually the central image is perfectly fine. It's usually around the corners. And that's where you'll start noticing some weird artifacts, and you got to know what to look for. And that's why we're here to help you figure out what to look for and know what to look for. So if you see a star that's in the central image that is perfectly round, it's perfectly fine, I always try to move the telescope to where the image shifts to the left or the right, the center to the edge, or the edge to center. Because that will tell you if the field of view changes, if there's any weird optics issues, possible collimation issue. And to check for collimation, all you literally do is just get the central star in focus, rack it outside of focus, check the concentric rings that are in the middle, that are around. They should be nice and even all the way around. Nice and even, evenly spaced and everything. And then you want to go to the other side of it and check to make sure that they're there as well. Sometimes, which some Explore Scientific have, some people call them pinched optics or flared stars. It's inverted divots that are inside the star. Now, they're 120 degrees apart from each other, but they're easily fixable. Some telescopes, you can't fix them because you have to send them off and do whatever. So, long rant there for no reason. So if you're wanting to go with full-frame cameras, you have to do a lot of research. You have to be willing to spend a lot of money because full-frame cameras, roughly, we'll call it $4,000. If you want to do 2-inch filters, great. But if you don't want to mess with vignetting, I think, what is it, Simon, 50 millimeters filters?
Yeah, the 50 mil square ones. So you'd have to go for a 50 mil square filter, which is at least one kidney. And then you got the filter wheel as well, which that turns into the size of a small family car. They get really, really big, really, really quick, and then of course you've got balance issues. You've got to start worrying about how to fix that. And even if your camera manufacturer even sells a 50 millimeter square filter wheel, so
I'm having trouble hearing you.
I think for what was that?
It was my watch. Sorry.
Is that telling you that it's time to get up or go to bed?
It's time to eat.
Ooh,
time to eat.
yum.
It's always time to eat.
You didn't tell me you were feeding me on this show. That's great.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
One of the things is that leaping into full frame is something that is quite advanced. It's certainly not something I would recommend a beginner could do, because actually the problem starts much earlier in the choice of equipment, because you really need to think about the image circle that you're getting off your telescope. Most telescopes are not full frame capable. What do we mean by that? Well, that's the focus that the telescope will create at the field of view where the actual camera is. So that's how much it's going to illuminate. If it is not big enough, then you're right. You will end up with corners that are dark because of vignetting, because the light fall in the corners isn't good. And that's why sometimes, you can be limited in the sensor size that you can put on particular telescopes.
Yeah. So there's a couple of questions when you get done, just so I can acknowledge the audience. I know Pekka and Josh, you have a couple of questions, but Simon, go ahead and finish, and then we'll get to those.
Yeah, so one of the key things is how big do you want to go? Full frame is really, really nice, but APS-C is a really good size sensor as well. Even with APS-C, you can run into some issues because the diagonal size of the chip means that you can 36 millimeter filters will barely cover it, and then you're into 48 millimeter, 2-inch filters. The step size for those is significant in cost. So
It is ridiculous.
again, you've got to think about the filter wheel size. You've got to think about the filters. And if you're just doing color and just throwing a, L Pro or L Extreme or something like that in, then that's not too bad. You'll still end up with a little bit of vignetting in the corners, and that's something you're just going to have to live with. It's manageable. You can manage it with flats, but yeah, it's something that you do need to think about. What do you got there? 6200.
Or a little filter slider drawer. No, this is the 2600 one-shot color.
Yeah, so the filter slide drawer. So if you turn it towards the camera, you can see there that the sensor size is pretty significant. It's almost at the central disc of that aperture that you're looking down the camera into. So by the time you've added a filter in there, it's got to cover the edges of that frame, else you'll end up with vignetting. So even with a 2-inch filter, it's pretty close. So 36 millimeters you can get. That's perfect. With 36 millimeters, you can get away with it if you're not using a fast scope, because we talk about the light cone of fast scopes being quite narrow. This is sort of how the light travels down the optical tube. Fast scopes and larger APS-C sensors will need bigger filters to avoid vignetting.
And that's another thing is if you get a fast scope, then you have to buy specific filters that are designed for the faster scopes, which in course costs more money.
Yep, trying to avoid halos. So it is a little bit of a triangle between the sensor size that you want, the filter sizes that you need, and how big your pockets are really. You can make do.
Yeah. One question from Pekka Hautala. What to be taken into account when choosing offset? Now, we both use the ASIR. We both use the Prima Luce Lab Eagle. I don't mess with offset on the ASIR. It kind of auto-populates, or it automatically just accounts for it, I would think. Now, with the Eagle...
Because that's how I help you set it up that way, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. It auto-populates.
So, what is offset? Right. So, offset is a pedestal that is basically set so that you can set the black level from the zero signal level just to bring it up, so that you can actually start to see the bottom end of your data. Now, choosing offset, what I would say to anybody is that after all of the testing, all of the investigation I've done, particularly around ZWO cameras, just use the defaults that are in the software, really, because they've been chosen by ZWO to be optimal. If you go too high in offset, then what happens is the data at the top end of the histogram is lost. It will actually spill out of the top. If you go too low, that you'll end up with a you saw this yesterday, Tyler, where you accidentally put an offset of 0, you end up with a white screen and no data. So
exactly.
And they do change per camera. The offset is depending on the sensor characteristics. And so I would say if you've got a ZWO camera, for example, just go into the ASCOM drivers and use the default. You can change the game, of course, but just leave it as a default offset. You won't ever have any problem. I've never touched it. I never bother worrying about it, and I never lose data.
Next question is from Josh Kovich. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Is there ever going to be a chance to buy an uncooled ZWO camera, but later upgrade it to a cool? I would assume not, because you're changing the whole body style at that point. That's what I would think.
So the answer is, Josh, unlikely, because Actually, the way that they are built, the uncooled cameras are just a printed circuit board with the sensor soldered to it, and then they're just inserted in a body. Whereas the cooled cameras, they have a lot more technology in them, because obviously you're having to manage the tech, the thermoelectric cooler that manages reporting to the software. It manages the fan temperatures, etc., and that comes on a completely huge circuit board and a cooler and a fan. So no, it's not something a user could upgrade, to be honest.
Another question for Mr. Kovac. He's wanting to know if the ASIR will ever be compatible for non-ZWO cameras. And I probably know this answer. It's going to be a no. It's going to be a no. But I have known people.
We basically, the ASIR is quite tightly controlled to help us develop it, but also to provide a good platform for support. There are limited numbers of DSLRs and mirrorless cameras that are supported by it, but no, ZWO have made a decision a long time ago that the format that they've got with the ASIR works really, really well. The development of it is quite robust. I think recently with TJ and I getting involved with ZWO, with the testing process and the beta testing, we've really got quite a stable release platform now. We're in a much better place. So I can't see you will get non-standard, non-ZWO items being added to ASIR. We get regularly asked about focuses, for example, and the answer is, all from headquarters is no, that's not what they aim to do with the ASIR. So, yeah, sadly not.
Pekka says he's got the 294 MC Pro. Now, from what I remember on the offset, I always left it at 50 or 100.
Yeah, I think it is 50. I need to go. I need to go and check the document, but look, there's a lot of people worry about offset, and there's really nothing to worry about. Just use the ZWO driver, use the standard offset. So when you load the ZWO drivers and go into the ASCOM, there's two ways that you can choose the settings. One is that you can use some preset defaults. There'll be one that says lowest noise, one that says highest dynamic range, one that says Unity. If you just use the Unity one as a starter, that's a good point. Highest dynamic range, usually they change the gain only. The offset usually stays where it is.
Yeah.
So I would leave it at that and just choose the default.
Josh, you may be confused, or you may not be confused. It may be the other show on Astroworld. Now, I've known there's been people that get a Raspberry Pi 4 and program it with some stuff on it to do both, either QHY or ZWO cameras, and basically the same thing. So if you know a good programmer, anything is possible, honestly. But if you're going to do that, I would assume you'd have to reach out to ZWO if you like that platform, buy their license, and they would sell it to you, and then go from there. And then you can manipulate and do whatever you want.
We don't. ZWO doesn't sell the licenses separately. You've got to buy an ASIR to get the license.
There you go.
Stellamate. There are some other platforms. Yeah. Stellamate, for example, does Astroberry. They are more sort of general ASCOM based devices. So instead of actually, having a closed environment to other devices, Stellamate and Astroberry do actually allow you to use just general ASCOM cameras, which means that you can use a QHY, you can use a ZWO, or you could use, SV Bunny, whatever whatever you like. So there are different platforms that are very similar. The one experience that I have about them is that they are generally not as developed in the tablet UI as ASI Air. For me, that is where that platform wins.
100% agree with you.
Certainly with the latest releases, there's a lot of new stuff in ASI Air, like the Sky Atlas, etc. And there's a lot more coming. So, we are constantly developing. And of course you've got the Eagle, which is a real open, basically a PC.
Yeah. It's basically a PC.
So then you can install anything you want. So I have the same here. So my test platform here has I have an ASI Air, but I also have an Eagle here, which I can use basically for testing as well. So I like the Eagle because it has the power management in there as well, Dew controllers, etc. And it's got this really nice mounting system with the rails and the rings, etc. So I do like that. But you could use a mini PC. Pekka's saying there, use a mini PC with Windows 10. You can install ASCOM onto there. You can then use SGP, Signals Generator Pro. You can use Nina, etc. So there's lots of options. So if you don't want to stick with the ZWO, closed environment, then there are plenty of options.
Josh is wanting to know if there's any predictions on the next public beta.
Yeah, very soon. So we're just releasing one in the next day or two. So keep your eye on that. The betas really, we release them when we're ready, and then when we never put dates around them, because actually what we're trying to do is to make sure that they are absolutely solid before we release them. So it's more about quality versus quantity, because we've made the mistake in the past of rushing features to release to our detriment, and what we've done now is made sure that we are really robustly testing these before actually they go live. So but there's definitely one in production ready, so you'll see and hear about that very shortly.
We're
already working on the next one behind the scenes.
Okay. Where will the customers be able to know or be notified of when that beta gets released?
You really want to look at the ZWO Facebook pages, look for the ASI Air page or the cameras page. The Facebook ASI Air group is really the place to get any latest posts, updates, etc. Jump on there, and then at the top of the page you'll always see the latest news in terms of releases, and they're mostly released by the Apple Play Store or the Android Play Stores as well. So if you get onto that beta program, then you'll always get update alerts when they come to the stores. The release on Apple is usually a little bit behind Android because Apple has so much more controls around their releases. And the internal betas, they generally even sideload their apps as well. If you've got an Android, you download the APK file and install that as well. So.
Okay, nice. So cameras.
That's a nice picture, Tarek, cuddling your scope. It gets cold at night out there.
Yeah. Have we some more cameras? How do you know? Since you're in the Southern Hemisphere, what are you wanting to shoot mainly? What do you mainly like to shoot? And what camera is your go-to camera? What's your go-to telescope? What do you like to shoot?
Well, me, Tyler, I'm definitely not a Galaxy man. And you and I have lots of lots of
Waste
lots of ragging each other around.
Waste of space you are, I swear. Man that doesn't like galaxies,
So
I don't
funny.
get it. I don't get it.
So I really love shooting at nebulas, and here in the southern hemisphere, that's really a good thing because we have a lot of emission nebulas. So I do a lot of narrowband work. Our weather here is a little bit sort of iffy at times. Usually, if it's a full moon, it'll be clear, guaranteed. So I really like shooting narrowband. Scope wise, well, I really love the Explore Scientific 127 that I have, the carbon fiber one. That really shoots such beautiful images. I'm very, very happy with the 127. And the other scope that I have an Esprit 120, which is also really, really nice. A little bit slower. And in fact, I'm just researching adding a new reducer to that, an APM Riccardi reducer, which will speed that up. I really do love wide field as well. So the little FRA 400 here with the reducer end gives me a super wide field. It's like 5 degrees field.
Yeah, it's like what?
That's really great for shooting some of the. Sorry?
It's 250 millimeters, isn't it?
230 millimeter focal length with the reducer. It's about a 5 degree field of view, which is amazing for
that's huge.
Wide field. Like Vela, for example, here is a supernova remnant, which is absolutely huge. That would take a 4-frame panel mosaic using the FRA 400. So I like wide field. I like. I've been playing around recently with the Sony A7 and doing Milky Way photography as well, which is something that I've not really done before. And using the AM5 basically as a star tracker because it's so light and easy and simple to set up.
Simon, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
This is Paul.
Sure.
The A7 III is what we shoot most of our stuff on, and it's also my personal camera. Does it still have that Star Eater feature that the Sony for a very long time had?
No, that's long gone. They've certainly upgraded the firmware a long time ago. I find the Ace really, really beautiful camera for shooting Milky Way photography. I've been really impressed with it. It's quite easy. It's quite sensitive, and I find that there's quite low noise as well, which is impressive. So you can set it at ISO 800. You can do a 20-second shot, and the Milky Way photograph that you'll get out of that is just incredible.
I found that and I do a lot of long exposure photography. Here's just a sample, and it's kind of my little hobby that I do. And I was always afraid of it losing the stars and the detail. But I found that it'll go to 2500 to 3500 ISO, and the noise is minuscule for what I do.
Yeah.
Which I shoot
really love it. Yeah, it's a really, really nice camera. There's a whole bunch of more recently there is a whole bunch of new cameras on the market. Modern mirrorless cameras are just incredibly impressive versus my old Nikon D5300,
which isn't a bad camera.
Excuse me. But the modern cameras are just incredibly impressive, and that's mostly because of the new sensors. Modern sensor technology. You're seeing these sensor technologies roll into our ZWO line as well. The modern planetary cameras using the Starvis Sony sensors, they're just incredibly sensitive, low noise, no amp glow. They're just, really fabulous. So, CMOS, a lot of people sort of, particularly if you're an old hand and played around with CCDs, there's a lot of grumpiness about CMOS cameras, but the sensitivity and the technology that are going into them, and the capabilities of them are pretty impressive.
Well, Sony's color space prior to the A7 III's update before last always showed green. And it didn't matter if you had a high-end camera or a low-end. For some reason, their color space, their color science, it just was a little bit green. And they fixed that in the last update that they made.
Yeah, been impressed with mine, but So Tyler, to your question, I tend to stick here to nebulas because we're fairly limited in galaxies. We are our own galaxy season just like you do, but I tend to What did I say to you? You've seen one barred spiral galaxy, you've seen them all, and that usually gets some eye. It makes a few eyes roll at my the observatory as well. But hey, if you like shooting nebulas, then
you can always. And that's the thing, guys. Since Simon's helped me out so much, I gave him access to the capabilities. If he's clouded out and I'm clear, I give him the opportunity in first dibs to shoot from my backyard. And he chooses nebulae instead of galaxy season, which it's weird to me. Because I got to set up my RCA.
Usually because about 9 o'clock you're ready for your Bobo's time, so yeah.
I'm old. Leave me alone. I'm old
and
tired.
And your nighttime is our daytime here, so it's quite easy to set up. I think there you can do photography. We've talked about this. Tarek wants my. I should show you the back, Tarek. It's got there we go. Yeah, got a very nice 10-year anniversary shirt. Hey, you didn't tell me your viewers want the shirt off my back, Tyler.
That's between you and them. I have no control of what they do. Pekka has a question as well.
It's Pekka. Can I cool down my 294 in the refrigerator or freeze before beginning to capture? Not really, because as soon as you unplug it, it's going to start coming back to and I wouldn't want to freeze it. The cooler in the 294 is actually cooling a very small area of the chip. It is not cooling the whole body. So the only time that I put my cameras in the fridge is if I'm shooting darks and I don't want to sit outside because it's too warm. Sometimes my roll-off roof observatory gets really hot in the summer, so I will bring the camera off inside and put it in the refrigerator inside. But in the winter, generally, it's not a problem. In fact, it's the opposite way. One of the recent additions I've acquired is a dehumidifier for my roll-off roof observatory, because what I've been finding with the roll-off is that if it's really cold and icy, the whole inside of the observatory is frozen. Then when I roll the roof back, of course, it melts during the day. I was coming in late in the afternoon, and the mount and counterweights and the scope was still wet. So
I think I think we're going to wrap up the show here, guys. Last time we talked to Simon, he mentions his observatory, and last time we talked, Simon, you had a little boo-boo with your observatory and taking out two mounts.
It's too early.
Is it still fresh in your
soon.
brain? Is that still fresh?
Too soon.
Still fresh.
Too soon. Yeah, too soon. So what Tyler is referring to is my observatory has a roof motor. And in the early stages of building my observatory, the roof motor is controlled by a little remote fob, like a key fob, that you would find on a garage door. And I was setting up one evening, and I accidentally had this in my pocket. And while the scopes were unparked, pointing at the sky, I accidentally pressed the button, and that caused quite.
Button.
Sorry,
the close all hatches button.
Yeah. It should be the sphincter clamping button, because yeah, you saw the video, Tyler. It was like a horror story, because the scopes were up and the roof closed.
But I will say that 127 took it like a champ and said, "No roof. I am not going down. I'm just
I'm not." Yeah, no, the 127 G Shield put a big dent in one of the roof rafters, and so what the damage of that was basically both my CEM60s. One was very severely damaged. The RA and the deck ring gears and worms were destroyed. The bearing was destroyed. But what I can say is that thanks to Ioptron, they provided me a bunch of spares. I got new bearings, new worms, new belts, etc. And we spun the ring gears around 180 degrees. Relocated the sensor pins in them for the 0 position, and happy to say that both CM60s are now operational again. It was not the cheapest repair, but it was a lot cheaper than Yes, Pecker, I do need a panic button. The problem was the panic did not set in until I actually went down the paddock to where the observatory is. Then I started to panic.
You have a panic button. You haven't wired it in yet.
Yeah. So the way that my observatory roof should work is I have a Dragonfly observatory controller, which is a fairly advanced setup in that it knows when the telescopes are parked and won't close the roof, etc. But this was a bit of a problem because using the remote control button, I basically bypassed those security protocols. It's worth noting that the key fobs are now away in a drawer away from my fat leg or my butt, or whatever I did to press the button.
That's a good note to end on, fat butt or fat leg. That's great. Good Lord. I have in my iPhone always with me.
It was an expensive. I had an expensive 15 seconds. I can assure you. Yeah, but the one good thing is I now know how to. Actually take apart an Ioptron CM60 literally down to component level and rebuild it, and how to tune it. So somehow
I thought it was going to be. I know how it feels to run as an old man now. Since you ran to the shed.
Well, yeah, I can assure you the how this happened was my wife was outside playing with her horses and said, "Why did you close the roof when I was playing with the horses? Because it scared them." And I was like, "I'm sitting inside watching the TV. And then we went outside, and then that's when the dread set in. But anyway, funny, not funny at the time, funny later, and a good outcome actually. And I actually bought in the interim. I got a CM70, just as an interim as well. So hey, I ended up with another mount out of it, and a young fella local to me is using my CM60 now very successfully, replacing his AVX as well. So that's good. And did I see a question there from Tarek about something about hard cases or something?
Yeah, you did. He's going to know when it's going to come out hard cases. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any plans for any hard cases, but there's a whole range of cases that you can buy from hardware stores. These kind of what do you call them? There's a name for these cases.
Pelicans.
Pelicases, yeah. That's a brand name, but these kind of carbon fiber reinforced hard cases that you can put stuff in for traveling. Some people use them and have whole setups in them. So because they do keep them quite dry as well. So
yeah, they do. But folks, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. I think next week, Simon, if you're available, I think we need to prepare or have the audience prepare for more questions, or have them prepare with questions.
Yeah. So maybe next week we can kick off talking about so you've got a new camera. One of the interesting things that I get, people ring in, or emails and go, I got this new camera and it's faulty. And we have to spend quite a bit of time working with new customers. What are they seeing? What are they missing? How do I get this connected? What should I do? And what are the results I can expect? So maybe we can talk a little bit about that, and maybe a little bit about which camera you might want to choose in another show. Because that's quite complex as well. That's another regular question that we get. If anybody has anything in particular that they would like to see, they would like to discuss, like a demonstration of, then just drop Tyler a question or a request, and we'll see what we can do.
Last question, Petka. You squeezed in by the nail of your teeth. Simon, have you had any experiences with the Ioptron CEM28?
Yeah, the little mounts that Ioptron recently bringing out. So they're quite nice. Small, compact mounts. They're kind of intermediate ranges below the CM40. They 26 and the 28s generally they don't have the same level of capability in terms of the internals. So for example, with the CM40, CM60, etc., you don't actually have to use the hand controller with these ones that you do, but they also offer Wi-Fi on them from the hand controllers, which older mounts like the CM60 don't. So they're aimed at a price point, like any kind of range of mounts or telescopes. So they're aimed more at the entry level, but they're more than capable. So good little mounts. The great thing I like about Ioptron mounts is how free the axes are. So when you undo an axis on an Ioptron mount, they really balance really well. They're very free, and they're quite easy to set up. So I really like that, and for me, that's one of the selling points. The center balance mounts are quite good. They can handle quite decent loads for small size bodies. Not as big as the AM5 here, but they're still pretty good for a small size. So good entry level mount, and I'm really an Ioptron fan. I have been for quite some time. So
perfect. Simon, again, I appreciate your time. Again, that's going to wrap us up, folks. Simon will hopefully be on if you can spare some time with us. Have questions ready, folks. Have all the questions, whether it be mount issues, camera issues, backspacing issues, anything. Or if you want to come on the show and talk about your experiences, or if you have an image that you want to show us that me and Simon can look at, and if you're having issues with it, we can address it right here and now while we're on the show, kind of deal. But other than that, I'm going to let it to the great voice beyond that controls the show take us off the air. So again, I appreciate everybody come in. Synthol Nagapan, I see it. Write that down beyond next week, and we'll answer that question next week. Appreciate it, buddy.
Cool. Thanks, team.
Feedback, Tyler.